Yeah, so thank you so much for reaching out to me. I love getting messages in my inbox, and lately I've actually been getting like more people saying that they have a message that they want to share, whereas before I was more going out and searching for people with that aligned message. So I
Right.
was really excited to see another email to come up and say like, hey, like I have something that I want to share, and I think your audience will really like it. So thank you for reaching out, and maybe we can just start off with maybe you sharing just about yourself, what it is that you offer, and how you knew that this was your calling.
So, to introduce myself, I want to tell you a story to help set it up. The story is about a farmer and a donkey. All right. And this donkey is one of his favorite farm animals because once he finishes working with the donkey on the fields, he brings the donkey home and he allows the donkey to play with his kids. So it's a treat. So they come out of the house, they get to play with the donkey. And once they're done, he releases them back out to the farm and it becomes a normal ritual. One night he brings the donkey home, they play with the donkey, and then he releases him back in the farm. But during the night, he ends up wandering and falling into an empty water well. So the next
Mhm.
morning, the farmer wakes up, he calls him, and when he calls him, the donkey doesn't show up. So he starts wandering around the farm, walking around the farm, calling his name, and he finally sees him or hears him at the bottom of an empty water well. So he walks over to the well. When he looks in, he goes and gets 6 of his friends, and they say, how are we going to get him out? And they decided the way they were going to get him out is they were going to get some rope and they were going to pull him out. So all 6 of them got rope and they start to lasso the donkey. They throw it down, they miss. They throw it down, they miss. They throw it down, and he finally, by his hind legs, he steps into the rope. They shimmy it up his body, and they start to pull. They pull, the donkey moves. They pull, the donkey moves. Then all of a sudden, halfway up the well, they realize that the donkey's too heavy. When they realize he's too heavy, they lower him back to the bottom of the well, and now the farmer has to make a grim decision. Now, he can't feed him food at the bottom of the well because that wouldn't make any sense.
Mhm.
In his mind, he can't starve him because, he's more like a pet, so can't leave him down there and starve him. So
Mhm.
then one of his hot-headed friends were like, just shoot him. And he's like, no, I can't do that. It's too violent. But one of his more reasonable friends said, listen, you don't want your kids to fall into the well. So we're going to have to cover him with dirt and it'll make your kids safe, but you're going to have to sacrifice your donkey. So the farmer says, you know what, I can deal with that. So they all get shovels and they start shoveling dirt into the well. And every time that dirt would hit the donkey, he would scream. And every
Mhm.
time he would scream, it would cause the farmer some distress. So you got dirt, scream, dirt, scream, dirt, scream. Then all of a sudden, the scream stopped. When the scream stopped, they give the donkey a moment of silence, but they keep going. You got dirt, you got dirt. And the next thing you know, you see the donkey's right here. So they start shoveling faster. The next thing you know, you see half the donkey's body. They keep shoveling, and the next thing you know, that donkey walks right out of the well that he fell into.
Mhm.
Right? So check this out. Every time that dirt came across the wall, it would fall on his back. He would shake it off, and he would step on it.
Ah.
And he took every scoop of dirt that was meant to kill him to save his life. So let me explain why I started with that, because I am the
Mhm.
donkey. Yes, I'm the
Mhm.
donkey. And what I want to do before we get started is to share some of my dirt. Um, I,
Mhm.
I grew up in a home with an alcoholic father. He was a raging alcoholic, and I have to put raging in front of it because he raged from the time I was born until the time he died when I was 16. Now, the way that affected me is the fact that growing up, even if I got lost in fun during the day, there was always a time when something would tap me on the shoulder and say, listen, don't you get too happy, buddy, because tonight you have to go home. So, I never found peace growing up.
Mhm.
On top of that, I grew up in poverty. My dad worked full time, my mom worked full time, but his money went to drinking. My mother was a housekeeper, so she didn't make much money. So she raised 4 kids with a housekeeping salary. So, we didn't really have much money, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll finish with this. As far as I grew up in dysfunction, my house, obviously, with what was going on was dysfunctional. But also where I live, my neighborhood, all the kids had similar homes to mine. So we had a lot of things going on in my community, crime, drugs, a lot of things that would hinder a young person in growing up to be a positive role model once they got older. But
Mm-hmm.
the silver lining to the story and what makes me passionate about what I do is the fact that I was able to endure all of that and come out and still not only have a positive outlook, I was able to take my story and use it to help other people.
Incredible. And what was like your beginning of noticing I can change this story and make it positive? Like, did you have a role model, or was there books or a certain person that you seen like this is possible for me? Or was it more of just like an inner power calling that you were like, I can make my own path with this, I can influence other people? What led you to make that shift in your mindset?
Well, what allowed me to endure it was the fact that I was very athletic. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I did is I created a family structure by and I did this not because I knew it, but it was just reactive. But my coaches became my father figure. My teammates became my brothers and sisters, like in a healthy family
Incredible.
structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the accolades I got because I was a really good athlete was what you would get from a positive parent that would be reinforcing positive development. So that protected me as I went through. And what made me realize that I can use it as my story is once I came through them and I went off to college, not even college, I used to work at some day camps. There was something about how my past left a residue that I didn't have to tell you my story, but
Mm-hmm.
it made people feel like I was a little different.
Mm-hmm. And did you notice the people who are also like in these camps, or maybe the coaches and people you were with, did they have similar stories to you, or your story was more setting you up, like you really persevered against so many things? Or did you find that the people you were surrounding yourself with had those similar stories and you were all persevering together?
You know, that's a great question that I would love to now, after you put it in, you presented it to me. Yeah, I'm gonna now backtrack and find these people. You know what? No one's ever told me, but
Mm-hmm.
by you asking me that question, I know I don't know the answer to each individual, but yes,
Totally.
that's why I help others. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe, not maybe, but they were reaching out to me because they probably saw something in me that they
Mm-hmm.
saw in themselves. And that's what provokes me or put me on the path of doing what I do, because I want to be that person that can step in and fill the void if a person was in need of it.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing, because now you could be the father figure. You could be like the missing brother, best friend that was needed at that time.
Yes, definitely.
Incredible. And how exactly do you do that now?
Well, what I've done is so I go through that traumatic life. I go to college, I major in social work, and I get a few jobs right when I graduate college, and they continue to give me curriculums. And the curriculums were terrible, and then I would get in trouble because the curriculum didn't work. So what I did is I took my life story, my education, mixed it together with a few programs that I had been participating in, and I created my own youth development curriculum, which I call Power of Peace.
Mm.
And I bring it into high schools. It's a 4-day program, but it's 2 days at a time. And what I do is I run the young people through an experiential experience where they're able to walk back through their lives and start to gauge where some things may have happened, which now become the catalyst and the control over how they make their decisions.
Whoa, that's so powerful. Whoa, I love that. So what does it look like? Like, can you walk me through the picture of, like, say if I was a youth or a student and I'm showing up on day one, like what does it look like to go through this program?
So listen, it's beautiful. So the first thing, you have to pretend you're a principal. So I come to you first, and I
Mm-hmm.
ask for 30 students, and I want that group to be made up of a cross section. So
Mm-hmm.
when you show up to the room, I want the white, black, Latino. I want the honor roll student, the jock. I want that to be made up of the 30 students. My
Mm-hmm.
entire group, everything I do is done in a circle. So you walk in, you sit in a circle. Now you're looking at all these people that you don't normally interact with. And I
Mm-hmm.
open up with the donkey story, and I open up with a picture of the house I grew up in and then the house where I live at now, just explaining to them my journey. And then I start to run them through these activities that peel back layers. So one of the first activities we do is we take on what I call adjective names.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want them to do with this subconsciously, and they don't even realize it until like halfway through the day, is I want them to take the mask off that they wear every day in school and pick up the mask of the name. So they have to pick an adjective that goes with the first letter of their name. So mine is Mighty Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime they speak during the workshop, they have to say the adjective name first.
Okay.
And then I just want to one of the first activities we do, so you can kind of get a feel, is called affirmation in two. So we did a little bit of that in the beginning. So now I pair you up with a partner, and you talk 1 minute for yourself to your partner about yourself, positive things. They talk 1 minute, positive things about themselves. Then I have each partner introduce the other person, and then I pull them out into the circle and we debrief it. And we
Mm-hmm.
talk about how it felt to talk about the positive things, but then I follow up with the question of how would it feel to list the negative things, or how much would it be easier? And let me tell you, 99.9% of the time, they all say that it's easier. And that becomes
Mm-hmm.
our starting point, because what I explain to them is that we are products of our thought lives. So at
Mm-hmm.
that point, I have them understand that there's people, first of all, us as individuals struggle with affirmation, but then
Mm-hmm.
we have people in our lives that don't help us in a positive way to deal with affirmation. And so what I explain to them, that if you're not careful on the way you process the things you go through in life and what people say to you, and I have a tag that I use, you have to be the driver of your car, not the passenger of your car. But when you allow outside resources and your negative thoughts to control you, you become the passenger rather than the driver. And that sets up our day. And so my activities help them find out what's driving their car if they're not actually driving it.
I love that. I talk a lot about of like the authentic self. So that would
Yes.
be like the driver, and then you have this mind that is always chattering with the good, the bad, the judgments, and the smallness. That would be like, can I just put you in the passenger seat brain while I drive the
Yeah,
car?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah. No, that's you right on point. Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to get them
Yeah,
to
that's
understand.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so perfect. And for them at that point, I could see that being so transformational. Like, so I teach yoga in some of the high schools here in New Brunswick, and before that was in Nova Scotia, Canada. And just starting to see them go, like first getting on their mats and they're like awkward and no one wants to talk, or they're talking about different things other than what we're really supposed to be doing. And then by like the second or third session, seeing them being like, oh, it felt really good to like have a nap in yoga nidra, or it felt really good to talk about our emotions, or like what kindness really is, and just getting them out of that one mindset that they seem to be stuck in. So
Right.
going through that process with you is really incredible, and that's something that they'll remember and integrate forever.
Yeah, and what's nice about it is when they come in and I tell my story first, it immediately disarms them. So they're disarmed because, I'm not a guy that pulls them into a group and say, all right, you start to tell me your story, but I'm not going to tell you mine. But then there's an activity, I got to tell you this one, which we do where the essence of the group totally changes. So you got to imagine you've been playing a little bit with this affirmation piece, but then I run them through this activity I call concentric circles. And what I do is I make an inner circle and an outer circle. And I have them answer 5 questions, and they'll speak to 5 different people. And so the first question is a person or people I respect and why I respect them. The second question is qualities that I look for in a friend. The third question is, if I had the power to change something in the world, what would it be and why? The fourth question is a time that someone you most loved hurt you. And the fourth one is a time that you lost someone you really cared about. And so they answer those questions with 5 different people. Now, remember, the group is made up of kids that teenagers that don't normally really hang out. And then I pull them out to the outer circle and we debrief it. And I tell you this because you're talking about them being comfortable. Before we even talk about the debriefing of it, the first thing I ask is, do you feel that? And they're like, what? And they don't say what. When I say, do you feel that? They say yes. And they say yes because the essence of the room totally changes. You see, and it changes because they've come into a room, everybody was a face. They've now gone through this activity, and each one of the faces become people. And we build off of that. So like when you say the second or third session that's starting to sink in, at this point, they really are at a not even a crossroad. They are now totally committed to the process. And so this is just like the third activity of the day. And so it's nice that from that point forward, we just build off of it, and I just start digging deeper into their story.
Wow. Can you give me an example of like one of the biggest transformations you've seen in someone, one of the youth or someone that you were working with?
Yeah. So I had a young man who he came in and he started telling us some of his story, and we got into it, and then by the end he was in a good place. But part of his story was abuse in the home. And from the abuse in the home, he got into a gang in our area that was very well known and very respected in the sense that people didn't mess with him. But once he left the group, we connected with him on the outside. We got him some lessons, boxing lessons. And so he started doing the boxing rather than doing all the criminal mischief in the street. And the boxing commitment took over from his other commitment to the negativity. This is a kid that never would have graduated high school, but he went on. The boxing changed his thought process. So he graduated high school. Then he went to the military. And what was beautiful about this story, when you're talking about transformation, so you take this kid where teachers probably were saying, oh, he'll never graduate. He's a pain in my butt in class. But he comes back one day while I'm doing my workshop in his dress uniform. So this is a kid that when I had him was like really like, you know, a screw up. And I'm doing my group and he comes through the door and he's in his dress uniform, you know, and I called him over, took a picture with him. And I said, you have to do me a favor and you have to walk down these halls and let every one of these teachers that said you wouldn't make it see the person that you were able to become.
Whoa. So did he go through the hallways and do that?
Yeah. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall because,
I
you know,
know. And then taking a video.
Yeah, because people, you know, unfortunately, you know, being a realist and working in schools, and I don't want to offend teachers that do their jobs and are fully committed, but there's people out there. You know, I do trainings for staff and, you know, teachers, and I tell them you can say one word to crush the spirit of a kid. And I think there's a lot of teachers out there. No, not a lot. There are teachers out there that are not fully aware or are aware of it, and they do more damage than help.
Oh, for sure. I had like a one-on-one like therapy session like 2 weeks ago. And one of the things that she walked me through was in grade 1, I had a teacher who used humiliation as ways to teach, which obviously we know that isn't useful, but like at the time, that's what she believed. And I couldn't spell the word pen, like P-E-N, because my dad says it as pin, like he has an accent.
Okay.
So I was writing it as P-I-N, not P-E-N. So she literally calls me out of my desk, gets me to go in front of the classroom, writes it on the chalkboard for all like 30 some students to see, and then is like, nope, that's wrong, and like kept making me stand there. She's like, okay, say it out loud. So she kept making me say it. I kept spelling it wrong. Like I'm starting to cry. Everyone's sitting in their seats. Like she's telling them not to help me. And eventually she's like, it's P-E-N, not P-I-N. And I was so humiliated. And then she made me sit in front of the classroom for the rest of the day, like away from all the other students, because I didn't know how to spell that one word. And I was so humiliated. And then like in my 20s, I was waitressing and she came in and I was like, I can't even wait on her. Like I'm still mad to this day. So that was what I was going through in my therapy session, was like being humiliated or being told that I did something wrong, when really like I didn't know any better. That's just how we pronounced it because we have an accent. And I'll never forget that. And that was like in grade 1 and I would have been 5 years old. So you're so right about those. Just a teacher could say one thing to you or put you in one situation, and then that sticks with you forever. Like you've now created a belief about yourself around that situation.
Yes, and you know what? I'm so happy you brought that up, because that is what my goal is with the young people and even adults that I work with. You see how you were able to go back? I call that teacher in your life a landmine. Now, see, what I feel is if people go through life, they step on a landmine, they don't blow up, but they damage occurs. So you were going through that time in your life, you stepped on that landmine, it didn't blow you up, so you continued on throughout your life, but that landmine left damage, and it made you go on in life feeling a certain way. And I feel like once we discover our landmines, then we can set up our lives in a way that is more consistent with who we really are rather than who we think we are.
How would you describe yourself now, and like who you're always like working towards being, like more yourself? How would you describe yourself now compared to when you were a youth?
Well, you know what? Wow, how do I put this? You know, yeah, I'm a spiritual guy. I'm very much into very much into my spiritual side. And I say that to you because, you know, the manufacturer, the person that, you know, my higher power, I never, I think, I'm thankful that I didn't feel any of that. So like when you ask me about a transition, what happens for me is that I become an adult, and rather than transforming into a place, I took the person that I am and I just share it with the world. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the only thing that I can really take from my childhood that I kind of like struggle with is my looks. So I was very built, you know, but I always thought I was ugly. You know what I'm saying? And the funniest thing, so yeah, there is something. So when the revelation of that is when Facebook came out. So when Facebook came out, imagine growing up and thinking you're not a good looking guy. And I started to go on Facebook, and girls would friend me that I went to high school with and talk about they had a crush on me. And I'm like, what the? So you think you're an ugly duckling, but all that time in high school, I wasn't, you know? So yeah. You know, there's little traces of things, but you know, as far as a holistic type of thing, I think that my progression in life now is really harnessing who I am, fine tuning it so I can use it to help people transition to a better part of their life, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And if anyone wanted to connect with you or like to find your work or to get more information, where is the best place for them to connect with you?
They can go to my website, which is michaelarterberry.com. That's for my public speaking website. More individual work. My nonprofit work with students is at youthvoicescenter.org. Right now, what's interesting is I would love for them to friend me on Facebook, which is my name, just Michael Arterberry. But I have a group within the Facebook, which I call Be Encouraged, which is the title of the book that I wrote. So if they join the group, it's a community where, you know, I'm able to interact and kind of feed my surrogate family on a daily basis. So Facebook, LinkedIn, and all the different social media places, yes.
Do you have any final like words of wisdom or insights or anything that you would like to share?
Yes. So I wrote a book. It's called Be Encouraged. It's written devotional style. So you pick a page and you use it to motivate yourself for the day. But I say that because I wrote this on the second page, and I want to share with everyone as something, as a take home. And what I wrote was, short-term thinkers plant gardens, long-term thinkers plant trees, eternity-minded thinkers plant themselves in the souls of others. And what I mean by that is I want people to live conscious lives and really make an effort so that when a person leaves you, you have touched them in a way that they've never been touched before. You know, and so that's my goal. And I think if all people did that, it would create a society with a lot more empathy, and a lot more of consciousness of being kind and selfless. So that's something I would just like to leave with your audience.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna listen to this again and write that down.
Okay. All
I
right.
liked that quote. Yeah. Me and my partner were really like focused with stuff like that, in the sense of like that eternity of teaching others like what you know, or how can you build something and leave it for other people. So even like when you aren't here, that feeling from like the heart and your message continues. So thank you so much.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.